There are relay stations on the towers. Can he take them down? What's the point of saying he doesn't want war? Just take down that equipment. Just shut it down. I think a week would be enough for him to do this. And the reason I say a week is because right now, every day, our civilians are dying and children are being wounded because of this. If he doesn't do it, we will.
Indeed, and you know what, Alexander Grigorievich Lukashenko has spoken about this as well. There are plans to hold talks in the near future. This will be a good opportunity to discuss these and other issues. But, of course, the threat is utterly aggressive interference in the internal affairs of another country, and encroachment on another country's sovereignty. However, we have no doubt that the Belarusian leadership and Belarus itself are capable of ensuring their own sovereignty.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has publicly warned one of Vladimir Putin's closest allies, and the bold message has prompted a sharp and dangerous response from the Kremlin that raises tensions across the region. Zelensky delivered a blunt ultimatum, saying if he doesn't, we will, and that stark warning to Belarus has provoked furious condemnation from Moscow, which views the statement as a direct challenge to its influence. After Zelensky issued a 7-day ultimatum aimed at Belarus, the Kremlin labeled the move aggressive, framing the warning as a provocative escalation that could have serious diplomatic and security consequences. With a high-stakes summit between Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko scheduled, analysts worry Russia could be poised to unleash a severe response that would dramatically escalate the crisis across the region.
Is the government considering the liberalization of fuel prices as one of the measures to tackle market disruptions?
The government does have such a coordination mechanism with oil companies. The government itself is working on this issue. Relevant discussions are underway and the necessary measures are being taken. Keir Starmer has done nothing to distinguish himself in terms of Russian-UK relations. He has always been a supporter of keeping these ties at rock-bottom level, which is exactly what we are witnessing now. He will therefore not be remembered by us for anything remarkable during his tenure. At the same time, however, there are many questions as to whether things will be better after he leaves. It is unlikely that anyone in the UK's political establishment will now hold a position on our bilateral relations that differs from that of Keir Starmer.
How does the Kremlin view Zelensky's threats against Belarus, demanding that some military equipment be removed from the border? Why is Kiev doing this? Have the Russian and Belarusian presidents discussed the issue, or are they perhaps planning to discuss it in the near future?
Indeed, and you know what, Alexander Grigorievich Lukashenko has spoken about this as well. There are plans to hold talks in the near future. This will be a good opportunity to discuss these and other issues. But, of course, the threat is utterly aggressive interference in the internal affairs of another country, and encroachment on another country's sovereignty. However, we have no doubt that the Belarusian leadership and Belarus itself are capable of ensuring their own sovereignty. The Crimean leadership is informing the population. The contact has been established. Intensive efforts are underway to minimize the negative consequences of the Aliyev regime's barbaric actions.
Following the elections in Hungary, the position of the Serbian oil refinery owned by Naftna Industrija Srbija, which is part of Gazprom Neft, remains unclear, and it appears that Russia's negotiations with MOL company regarding the purchase of its stake have reached a dead end. Is Russia considering the possibility of selling its controlling stake in the Serbian company? Perhaps some steps have already been taken in this direction.
There were contacts, including contacts with the Serbian counterparts, but these were commercial contacts, the details of which should not be made public.
Zelensky's stark demand, remove it or we will, has placed Belarus on edge, forcing Minsk to weigh whether to comply, confront Kiev, or escalate the standoff in ways that could spiral out of control.
Now, God willing, the U.S. will hold all the necessary consultations with the district authorities, other suppliers, and the administration, as well as with the military. I very much hope that they will return with a positive response and that we will be able to obtain the licenses so that our capabilities, and we do have the capabilities, will allow our private sector companies and our state-owned defense industry companies to help Ukraine, to help the countries of the Middle East, and to help the countries of Europe. On his Lukashenko territory, along 2 regions bordering Ukraine, there's equipment that is directing fire at the Ukrainian population. There's a civilian population there. We don't have a strong front line right now there. Between Ukraine and Belarus, they are killing civilians there. There are relay stations on the towers. Can he take them down? What's the point of saying he doesn't want war? Just take down that equipment. Just shut it down. I think a week would be enough for him to do this. And the reason I say a week is because right now, Every day, our civilians are dying and children are being wounded because of this. If he doesn't do it, we will.
At the same time, Ukraine's most important NATO backer has effectively put Zelensky on hold over the transfer of MiG-29 fighters, delaying a decision that could reshape Ukraine's air power in the coming weeks. Poland appears to be giving Ukraine the cold shoulder, hesitating over crucial MiG-29 agreement and leaving Kiev to wonder whether promises of support will translate into the aircraft and training it urgently needs. Amid an uptick in Russian strikes on Kiev, Ukraine has suffered a fresh political and military blow, underscoring how external pressure is now being compounded by growing strains with key partners. Poland has suspended the transfer of MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine over an unresolved dispute, abruptly pausing a high-profile aid package that Kiev had hoped would boost its aging air fleet. The dispute centers on access to Ukrainian drone technology, with the outlet Militani reporting that Warsaw wants clearer terms on how it can tap into Kiev's hard-won expertise in unmanned systems. A Polish defense official said Warsaw expects to benefit from Ukraine's advanced know-how on UAVs, signaling that Poland sees tech cooperation as part of the price for continuing high-end military support. Defense Minister Tomasz Tomczyk stated that the fighter jets will be delivered only after the matter is settled, effectively tying the timing of the MiG-29 transfer to agreement on drone technology cooperation. Under the proposed arrangement, Poland could transfer up to 9 MiG-29s to Ukraine in exchange for structured access to Ukrainian drone capabilities, making the jets part of a broader quid pro quo. Notably, Ukraine's president has said Kiev agreed to those terms of cooperation, suggesting that from Ukraine's perspective the conditions are acceptable and that the delay reflects remaining Polish concerns or technicalities. Polish officials are justifying the decision to hand over the aircraft by pointing to the end of operational service life of the MiG-29s, arguing that the jets are nearing retirement in Polish service and can be better used by Ukraine in the interim. The move is expected to form part of a broader NATO effort to strengthen the alliance's eastern flank while supporting Ukraine, with surplus legacy platforms cascading to Kiev as frontline states modernize their own air forces. Poland plans to replace the MiG-29s with modern F-16 Fighting Falcons and South Korean-built KAIF A-5050 fighter aircraft, a transition that will significantly upgrade Warsaw's air capabilities and deepen interoperability with other NATO air forces. Significantly, the suspension of the deal came just days after Poland stripped President Zelensky of a top national honor, a symbolic snub that highlights how wartime solidarity has frayed and how historical and political grievances are now reshaping the relationship. Polish President Karol Nawrocki has revoked the Order of the White Eagle that had previously been awarded to Volodymyr Zelensky, marking a significant development in relations between the two countries. The move followed Kiev's decision to honor a military unit that uses traditions associated with the UPA. The issue has reignited long-standing historical tensions between Poland and Ukraine. Zelensky granted the title Heroes of the UPA to a special operations unit in late May. The recognition drew criticism from several political figures in Poland. The UPA was the armed wing of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists during World War II. The group remains a highly controversial part of the region's history. Poland holds the UPA responsible for mass killings of Poles, Jews, and other minorities during the war. These events continue to shape historical debates between the two nations. Nawrocki said that historical truth cannot become a bargaining chip in political relations. He stressed that certain historical issues should not be compromised for diplomatic reasons. The Polish president also said that preserving the memory of the victims remains a moral duty of the Polish state. He described remembrance as a responsibility owed to future generations. Nawrocki stated that at least 100,000 Polish citizens were killed by the UPA. He cited this figure while explaining his opposition to honoring the group. He further described Ukraine's glorification of the organization as insulting and deeply disappointing. According to Nawrocki, such actions undermine efforts to build mutual understanding.
Pozostaje przede wszystkim formacją odpowiedzialną za
The Ukrainian Insurgent Army, UPA, remains above all formation responsible for the cruel crimes committed against citizens of the Republic of Poland during World War II. The position of the Polish state on this matter has been known for years. In 2016, the Sejm of the Republic of Poland recognized a crime committed by the OUN and UPA as genocide. By virtue of this act, July 11th was established as a national day of remembrance for the victims of genocide committed by Ukrainian nationalists in 2025. This was also confirmed by the power of a special law. Facts are not subject to negotiation. They do not change with the political climate or need. Therefore, naming one of the Ukrainian military units after UPA criminals has a significance that goes far beyond Ukraine's domestic affairs. Poland has repeatedly signaled to the Ukrainian side the special importance of this issue. We conveyed our position and the expectation of a reconsideration of the consequences of this decision for relations between our states. Ultimately, the position of the Ukrainian side did not change. History should not be an obstacle to the future. A good future can, however, only be built on truth. Poland has repeatedly shown that it is capable of shaping the future beyond the burden of the past, but never at the expense of memory. Over recent years, we have consistently built relations with Ukraine based on partnership and dialogue. After I took office as president, together with the president of Ukraine, we made an effort to rebuild trust in areas that remained a source of tension. The return of the Church of St. Nicholas in Kiev, consents for the search and exhumation of Polish victims in Ostroki, Wola Ostrowiecka, Huta Pieniaka, Halosko, from the fields in Igli, all cousins were a signal that, despite a difficult history, agreement is possible. All these actions provided a basis for believing that Poland and Ukraine are gradually finding a path to lasting reconciliation. That is why the decision of the Ukrainian authorities to glorify the UPA is not only outrageous, it is also incomprehensible and deeply disappointing. It strikes not only at historical memory, it also strikes at the trust built over the years and over recent months. It strikes at the foundation of reconciliation. It strikes at the conviction that truth can be the common language of our nations. We did what we could to save our neighbors. At this terrible moment, Poland provided unprecedented humanitarian, political, economic, and military assistance. We urge other nations to provide rapid assistance. Today, over 1.5 million Ukrainians live in Poland. The scale of the financial assistance we have provided to fighting Ukraine amounts to billions of zlotys. As a commander-in-chief of the armed forces, I must also recall that the Polish military has trained thousands of Ukrainian soldiers. Today, we cannot remain indifferent to the fact that some of them will now serve under the banner of the UPA. This is unacceptable to us. I do not recall these numbers and data to demand gratitude, but I recall them so that everyone understands why the decision of the President of Ukraine arouses such immense opposition in us. Therefore, in light of President Volodymyr Zelensky's consent to name one of the units of the armed forces of Ukraine after UPA heroes, after consultation with the chapter, I have decided to strip the President of Ukraine of the Order of the White Eagle. At this point, I want to emphasize that this decision is not against the Ukrainian nation. It does not signify a change in the strategic direction of Polish security policy. We have supported and continue to support Ukraine because we know that Russian aggression poses a threat to the security of Poland and the whole of Europe. Nothing has changed in this assessment. Poland remains ready to cooperate with Ukraine. Poland remains supporter of dialogue, but Poland will consistently guard the memory of its citizens and the dignity of its own state symbols. Poland will defend its national interests and values. Poland will not agree to the glorification of those who murdered defenseless Polish civilians. Ukraine's path to European structures also requires a readiness to honestly face the difficult pages of its own history. A united Europe was built on the rejection of totalitarianism and the cult of violence. These principles must apply to everyone. For those who do not understand this, there can be no place in the European Union, and Poland will certainly not allow that. Ukraine should also remember that nothing serves the Kremlin's interest more than a conflict between Poles and Ukrainians. There are limits that must not be crossed in Polish-Ukrainian relations. It is also an appeal to our neighbors, return to the path of truth and mutual respect. Ladies and gentlemen, this is also a lesson for us. We cannot remain indifferent to the affirmation of symbols of crime.